So blending at Gary Farrell is, it's my second favorite part of my job. It's really hard to pick a favorite, as I said before, but blending is really important here, mostly because we have two Russian River Selection blends that are our flagship wines. They're the ones that make it out into the different cities where we go and we sell the wine. So we want people to have, two of the most representative wines of the Russian River Valley, not only from Gary Farrell, but of the Russian River Valley. And so what we do is we start, it's a long process. The Russian River Chardonnay takes about 3 weeks, and the Russian River Pinot takes anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. So we start by tasting each of the individual blends in barrel, each of the different lots in barrel. We may have anywhere from 40 to 60 Chardonnays, for example, just for starters, and as many as double that for Pinot Noir. So you can imagine how time-consuming it is. So we sort of grade, meaning we identify which ones are the soloists and which ones are members of the orchestra. This is Nancy's favorite thing to talk about. And so that's the first object. And then the second object is we take the pieces of the orchestra, which are the components that we think are going to come together. They have different acidities and different structures, meaning different tannins. Just as a couple examples, some are more fruit-driven than others. So we identify which ones are the key components that need to be put together as kind of what we call the base blend of the Russian River Selection. It's the smallest possible blend that we would put together. So in your left glass, we have the base blend. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have some outliers that we may have identified that we think could work in the blend or may not. Maybe we want to set them aside. And we have some other key components that could be a part of the blend, but we're not really sure in what proportions or if they belong in the blend, if they really contribute something positive to the blend. So we have set aside some key components and some outliers. Outliers may not make it into the blend at all. We need to decide how much of the key components go into the blend. So on the other end of the spectrum, what we have is what we call a soup blend, which is the largest possible blend. And so what we want to do is taste the soup blend compared to the base. The soup is the largest possible blend, and we want to see what sort of flavor profiles or aromas are in excess in that blend, or if it's just right, but we want to taste the base and see what's missing. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of how we calibrate our palates first. And then we have, what we're going to do together is make a couple of the different blend options with some of the components. So you and I can just smell and taste these really quickly.
Absolutely.
Very aromatic. These are 2016 Chardonnays. Just fresh out of barrel, so
Fantastic.
they have a lot of nice, creamy, toasty aromas.
And Teresa, who's joining you usually traditionally in the barrel, in the blending
In the
process?
blending. So that's a really good question. So we taste as a team. It's not just a solo winemaker producing the Gary Farrell wines. I have Brent McCoy, who's our assistant winemaker, Mark Osborne, who's our enologist, and Lawrence Donald, who's our cellar/vineyard guy. And yeah, we do bring the vineyard guy in to taste with us because he has that whole background of knowledge,
Absolutely.
as do I. We share that responsibility together. So we bring in the vineyard aspect to the blending.
Fantastic.
So it's great. So really quickly, if you smell them side by side, you can see that one of them has more richness, just on the aroma alone. It has more richness, ripeness, and oak.
Absolutely.
The one on the left is more citrus driven. It may be missing a bit of that richness. So these are the kind of things that we talk about when we're blending. So we sort of want to pare that down and narrow down the different components. We have 50, different components to talk about.
Sure.
So what we're doing is we're starting with 3 of them over here. So what I'll do next is make these 2 little blends, which won't take me very long at all. So let's see. I have 3 different components that have some different flavor profiles. So this one just gets 28 milliliters of one of the components. So I have my handy, trusty graduated cylinder here. Not very scientific, but it does the job. So these percentages are based on volumes in barrel. So we just narrow them down to, what I've done is I've narrowed it down to 100 milliliters in total. And then it gets 72 milliliters of my base, which I'm going to use my base because I forgot it over in the other area. And 19 milliliters of the first component. And 32 milliliters of the other. I'm gonna have to top the other one up with some base. Let's see what the other one is. Okay. So that one's done. So what we've done is just estimated different proportions of volumes in barrel and cut it down to 100 milliliters so that we try the wines in samples, and it estimates what we have in the cellar in barrel. So I just do a little bit of stirring. And then I dumped out my base. You still have yours.
Mm-hmm.
So this is blend 3. So now what we want to do is just taste them.
Mm-hmm.
And normally what we do is we taste blind, and we have these score sheets, which you have on your table there. I put a score sheet there for
Absolutely.
you. So what we do is each of us has a score sheet where we write down aroma descriptors, we write down flavor descriptors, and each one of us, each column has our name there, and we rank them as a team 1 to 4, blind, totally blind. And then we add up the total scores, we end up with a group rank. And we do this a number of different times so that we can get statistical relevance, because today we may taste and pick blend 3, tomorrow we may taste and pick a completely different one. So we want to taste them 2 or 3 different times to try and decide which ones are really the best wines, which ones are the strongest. Sometimes when we get down to the last 2 wines, each of us picks exactly the same in first and second place if we only have 2 to decide between, which really confirms for me that we've done the right thing for the wines.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead and taste and smell. Try not to mix up my glasses here. So again, the base is very citrusy, very lean. The soup is richer, riper, creamier.
Mm-hmm.
The third is definitely somewhere in between. The fourth as well, but I'm kind of leaning toward the fourth blend. I think the third glass has a little bit more toasty, ripe aromas that I really want in the blend. Ultimately, the style that we're shooting for is a precise, very pure expression of the entire Russian River Valley, because the Russian River blend is getting components of Rocchioli in the Middle Reach or Bonovia in the Santa Rosa Plains. We used to work with a vineyard called Boudreaux in Green Valley. So each of those has different acidities and different flavor profiles.
So you have a stylistic, a specific stylistic approach or goal before you even start then?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're not married to a very specific style. It's very vintage dependent.
Mm-hmm.
But even despite the vintage, the style of the wines coming out of the Russian River Valley are pretty consistent from one year to the next.
Sure.
You know, we have specific soil types, we have specific clones that are planted, and we work with specific growers. Each of those produce flavors that are consistent, but just slightly different from one vintage to the next.
Now, do you get the chance during your blending process each year to maybe experiment a little bit and maybe do something and set it aside to see how it may develop down the road?
Absolutely. We have this little series that's called our Inspiration Series. It's basically the winemaker's experimentation label. It's a black label. We may produce anywhere from 50 to 125 cases from one year to the next. For example, we've done Pinot that was oak tank fermented, just one lot of oak fermented that was a certain percentage of whole cluster. We bottled up a couple of different wines from our concrete egg, and these are just really experimentation techniques. So, in a nutshell, that's the process of blending. I'm happy to taste. We can taste and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. We've smelled and I've given the gist of kind of what we're looking for.
Absolutely. Well, this is fantastic. Thank you for your time today.